Aloha, everyone, and welcome to our AAF Hawaii Education Series, ABCs of JOBs. My name is Jody Shiroma from PBS Hawaii, and I am also a proud board member of AAF Hawaii. Our moderator, who was originally going to do this, had a scheduling conflict, so I'm pleased to jump in and serve as your moderator for this evening. Thank you again all for joining us. So we are excited to host this annual event with renowned professionals who represent various sectors of the industry. Each of them will share with you this evening how they got their start and offer insight and advice on how you can go from hitting the books to getting hired. To simplify things, the chat will be moderated. So we ask that if you have any specific questions to submit them in the chat box for Q&A following the session. Also, before we begin, we would like to encourage you to attend our last two scoops of the season this year. It's on Wednesday, May 8th with comedian, actress, and writer Passion Santos. So visit our website at afhawaii.com to register for free. So now let's get started. Again, if you have any questions for our panel, please include it in the chat. So today I'm excited to have on our panel this evening, Karli Young, product designer from Servco, Christianne Michel, a senior copywriter from MVNP, and a good friend of mine, Kevin Yim. He's the Vice President of Marketing and Communications for FCH Enterprises, which is the parent brand of Zippy's Restaurants and its affiliated companies, which after this, just shameless plug, I am going to be eating Zippy's after this session. So welcome, panel. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So briefly, please share how you got started in the industry. So let's go around the panel. We'll start with you, Kevin.
First off, I'll get you on discount, Jody, if you're going to eat at Zippy's after this.
Okay, right on.
So how did I get started in this industry? And, I do come at this from the brand side and the marketing side, not necessarily the advertising side, but I did start in advertising. And like so many things in Hawaii, you know somebody who knows somebody, and they know your parents. And it's really working that network that I was able to land my first gig in radio, which then actually led me to another gig, a brand gig really at Bank of Hawaii. So it's super Hawaii how I got started.
Definitely. Karli, how about you?
Yeah, so I took a traditional route to where I am now. So I studied computer science and interaction design in school on the mainland. And then at the school I went to, they're known for something called a co-op program, which is I took off every other semester to intern. And I interned in California doing a lot of digital marketing work. So that sort of led me to have more of that kind of experience, and then led me to where I am today.
Nice. Christianne, how about you?
Yeah, so I started with a creative and public relations internship in 2017, and it was there that I got kind of my first taste of the industry. And I found that my love of writing and being creative could translate really easily into a copywriting career. And that first internship was actually at MVNP, where I work. So coming back last year was a full circle moment for me, for sure.
Nice. So most, if not all of the people joining us this evening are in college and graduating in a few months to a year. So Karli, let's start with you. As someone who recently graduated and is now in the workforce, tell us about your experience in landing a job.
Yeah, I can't stress enough what the value of internships were for me. Yeah, when I graduated, my top two job prospects were both from internships. So the one I have now, I had interned there, and then they actually created this position for me after that. And the other one I had was an internship I previously did that my manager at that previous internship had reached out to me that they had an opening on their team and asked me to apply. So yeah, I can't stress how valuable it is to take advantage of those opportunities closer to when you're in school and when those things are available to gain experience, have some sense of what the workplace is like in different industries, and even to meet people who can give you those opportunities.
So before I move on to some of the other panelists, how does one go about seeking out internship opportunities?
Yeah, great question. similar to like searching for a job, I think a big thing is just putting yourself out there. So I've even gotten opportunities from like cold emailing people. It was actually MVNP. I cold emailed them and got an internship there. Or yeah, like leveraging your connections. So I read in this book, Defining Decade, highly encourage it, that you get a lot of opportunities from loose ties, and that's so true. Like there are, yeah, connections. Like a friend's, one of my friends, like someone who went to church with them, gave me an opportunity for an internship. So like, yeah, really random things can get you opportunities if you're willing to put yourself out there.
That's interesting. So, Kevin, you talked a little bit about um, Hawaii and how you got into your positions in the Hawaii way, right? Tell me a little bit, or tell the group a little bit more about that. And if, in fact, building a personal brand is important in landing a job as part of your process, or if it's just someone who knows someone who knows someone.
Yeah, I think what Karli said is absolutely correct. You need to work your contacts up, down, left, and right to find ways to get in the door, to get the interview for the internship, your first position, the next position, whatever it may be. However, once you get that interview, like, what do you do? And this is where I think sometimes you spend so much time trying to find the opportunity that when presented the opportunity to walk in the door, like things kind of fall apart, or you haven't prepared appropriately for that. So the first thing I always advise new college graduates to do is really work on yourself first. And this comes down to working a personal brand. What is a brand? So I'm sure everybody here knows that a brand is a perception held by someone else about yourself. So in other words, it's not about what you say about yourself, it's about what others think about you. And so in the world of perceptions, when it comes to people, what are some of the things that can affect you and your perception, how people perceive you? Number one, your reputation. Have you done the things in school that make people want to trust you? Or have you been that guy in the group project that never contributed anything but like signed at the bottom, right? What was your relationship with your peers? Your relationship, even maybe you had a job at, I don't know, Zippy's was your first job, or 7-Eleven, or whatever it may have been. What was your reputation and your relationship with your managers there? And what do other people willingly say about you? Or are they quiet all of a sudden? Again, and I say this as it's Hawaii, but it's not really. The world has become very, very small very, very quickly. People can find out a lot about you. And there's, it used to be 6 degrees of separation. In Hawaii, I'll call it the 1 degree of separation between you and somebody else. And they can easily check up and, hey, what do you think about this person? And so it's not as if this happens overnight. This is something you need to work on early on in your college career and think about mindfully, and participate in the group discussions, participate in doing that project, making sure you have good relationships with your managers and your peers. And then secondly, look internally. What are your values? What gets you up in the morning? What makes you super excited to show up to work every day? What are the things that you're passionate about when it comes to the work world? Know those things. And I'll be really honest with you, at my age, I'm much older than many of the people on this call. I am still asking myself that question because it changes at different points in your life. And as long as I know that at this particular point in my life, I value these things. And in my particular case, I value time with my family, time with my friends, and the ability to have a little bit of flexibility, right? And that's what I value today. But if you ask me in my 20s, it was about achievement. It was about getting the really cool first job. It was about a lot of things that had to do with external rewards versus internal rewards now. And you need to ask yourself these questions like every month or two, and make sure you know what they are, so that when you go into that interview with this person, you've sought out this interview, you can clearly articulate, I really enjoy doing creative work. I really enjoy doing, I don't know, media planning, whatever it may be, such that you inhabit a position, a brand position in your mind, in the viewer's mind, and you're creating that brand.
So Kevin, you hit upon a lot of really great points. How does how does social media play into that brand? Because you could have, when you present yourself, like when you and I were both getting our first job, there was no social media.
Thank God.
Thank God is right. I would probably not be working in this industry right now, or maybe I would. But
Yeah.
how does that play into it? Because you can do all the right things. How you present sometimes in college and in class is very different how you present on social media and or in person, right? So do you have any guidelines or suggestions for people? Because like you said, everybody is searchable, right?
hmm I mean, there's some of the most obvious things you could do out there. Make sure that there are pictures of you and pictures that your friends are posting about you, situations that are appropriate. If you don't know what those are, maybe put your account on private. But maybe what you should be doing is opening up LinkedIn and writing certain things about LinkedIn. Like today, I learned at my job X. And if you can do that over time, you're building up content for people to say, at least this person is thinking internally about themselves and they're thinking about their employer. And while it may not be exactly what I'm looking for, I like this person because they're clearly reflective.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think, and different social media platforms are for different things, right? LinkedIn is definitely for work, or, people have Finstas versus Instas, and, so on and so forth. So thank you. Christianne, when do you think individuals, particularly college students, should begin prepping for their future career, and what should they start doing now? For example, preparing a portfolio.
So I'm a big believer in that if you have a goal for the future, your actions now should be directing you toward that goal. For some people, this is more solid than for others. For example, I've known I wanted to do something in writing pretty much my whole life. But for people who know they might be interested in an industry, but not a specific, place in that industry, maybe the thing that you're doing now to propel yourself toward that goal is exploring. So maybe this is job shadowing or informational interviewing. So reaching out to people who work in the places that you're interested in getting a foot in the door in, like Karli mentioned, cold emailing. This could be opportunities that happen on your college campus, like events or conferences or seminars like this one. And for college students, I would definitely +1 Karli on the importance and value of internships, especially in your junior and your senior year as you're getting closer to graduation. Internships are a great way to develop your skills, to explore the industry you're interested in firsthand, and then to make those connections, like everyone has said, that could lead to opportunities down the road. I actually started my portfolio and my website in my junior year of college, and that was to have something to show for my internship applications. And for that portfolio, I basically gathered anything that I had that I thought showed capability, because I think that's what people are looking for, that you're capable and you're willing to learn. So for me, I was in the theatrical organization in my college, and I helped run the social media, and I helped, market the plays and the musicals. So I kind of gathered some of those posts, and that was the beginning of my portfolio. So it's kind of taking the things that you're already doing, and just keeping track of them, kind of like what Kevin was saying about, showing that you're reflective and showing that you're paying attention and showing that you're thinking about yourself. And I would say that if you don't have any experience with organizations or anything like that, maybe that's something you consider joining, or maybe it's something that you create in your free time. Maybe you just give yourself an assignment. People just really want to see that you can do it.
Nice. Karli, is there anything you want to add to that?
That pretty much, yeah, covered it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked what Christianne had said about portfolios and being like reflective on your work. I think something important is being able, especially in like creative or design work, to be able to articulate like why you made the decisions you did and why you did what you did.
So I don't know if this is a Kevin question or for Karli or Christianne. Just when you're creating a portfolio, is it good? And maybe this ties to brand too. you might have a specific design aesthetic or a certain type of writing style. Is it better to show the breadth of your writing style and or design, or is it better to hone in on a specific type of style or, writing style and or design style when you're putting a portfolio together?
I can speak to that one from a creative perspective. So for my portfolio, I have kind of an about page where I speak in my own voice and kind of get into, I have a little bit of a, wittier voice than maybe some of the brands that I would write for. So, I get to express myself and kind of show that personal brand, or hopefully what I hope people think is my personal brand on my about page. And then once you get into my actual portfolio, that's where I demonstrate the breadth. And that's where I demonstrate, I'm here in this range, this side of the spectrum in terms of creativity and pushing the envelope. And then here's kind of the taking complicated concepts and making them simple. I would say express yourself in the parts that pertain to you and then show breadth in the portfolio itself.
Nice. Kevin or Karli, did you want to add to that?
I think Christianne is absolutely right. As somebody who hires creatives, I will tell you that I really do appreciate seeing the breadth of their creative work and seeing how far they can stretch.
Nice, very cool. So, Kevin, in addition to the things that were mentioned, you hire people. So besides those things, what do you think or what do you feel are the most important qualities and or skills you look for in a future employee, and why?
I have really only one answer to that, because I really think it's not good just for finding a job. It's just being a good human being. And it's curiosity. How much curiosity do you have, and how far do you follow that? Are you interested in things that may not necessarily be like spoon-fed to you? I probably never told too many people this, but at some point in life, I actually considered going to theology school and get a master's in theology, not to be confused with divinity, two different things. And that probably scares Jody because she knows me. It's totally different than what you know me for, right? I have interest in things that, up, down, left, and right, they're totally different from each other, as reflected in my Spotify playlist. So are you curious? How do you demonstrate that curiosity? Because I think when you're curious, you are a great employee, period, no matter what job you have.
I like that. Karli and Christianne, maybe you're not in a hiring position, but working alongside colleagues, is there something that you look for when you're working in a team space, right? Whether it's in your department or throughout the organization. Karli, you want to tackle that one first?
Sure. Yeah. I think something my team looks for, very similar to what Kevin said, is that they're teachable. And I think some of the things we look at to determine if they are teachable is, yes, curiosity. Like, do they want to know more? Are they like listening to what we're like talking about? And then does it like give them inspiration of like what else? And then that they're open-minded. So are they open to feedback? Do they listen and respond to it? And then kind of some other things that we were talking about, but are they reflective about their experiences so that they're, trying to learn from their experiences?
Nice. Christianne, any thoughts on that?
I think that Kevin and Karli have covered it really well, but I'll just add that I think no matter what position you're in at a company, I think collaboration and being willing to be a team player is really important, because that's why they put you in so many group projects in school. It's because you need to learn to work on a team. And you don't want to be, like Kevin said, that guy who's just signing his name at the bottom. You want to feel that you can trust and that you can share ideas with and kind of, back and forth with the person beside you, is what I would say.
I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, my older daughter's in college right now, and I hear a lot of complaints about the individuals that just sign their name on the bottom. She's type
And now
A.
they have a reputation, right? So
they don't want that person on their team. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Kevin, when you shared that carries on throughout. And in Hawaii, in such a small market, these people. So if someone knows someone, you're like, I don't know if I want that person on the team. I think it is important. Follow-up question. So we talked about from the organizational perspective, but how should someone prepare for an interview? What are some of the questions that they should prepare for the interviewer, and what answers should they have in advance? And Kevin, I think we offlined a little bit about that, but if you'd like to share with the audience.
So first things first, do your research on the person with whom you're interviewing. LinkedIn is so awesome nowadays. You can totally look up anybody and where they worked, which will give you questions about like, oh, you used to work here. What was great about that job? Why did you leave to go to job Y? X or Y, Z, whatever it is. So that's an easy way to do it. But the one question that I always ask, I always tell people to be prepared for, is normally thought of as a softball question, and it's not. It's actually the most insightful question you will be asked. And that question normally starts the interview. And the question is, so tell me a little bit about yourself. And oftentimes what happens is I get a recitation of their resume. I can read. I saw that. This is your opening opportunity to make an impression upon me. So what I mentor others to say is, well, my name is Kevin. I'm from Hawaii. Here are 3 things you should know about me. And I go through 3 either top accomplishments that I've gone through. I won an award here, or I, was leading the group that did this, or I speak another language. Something, these 3 bullet points that can start the conversation. Because in an interview is not a tennis match, ask question, answer question. The best interviews are the ones that come off like a conversation with a friend. And so if you give the interviewer something to latch onto, most interviewers want you to succeed. That is, I will tell you, having done hundreds of interviews in my life, I love it when the person wants me to succeed. Okay. It's normally you think about it the other way around, right? Like, oh, I have to impress the interviewer. The interviewer is just as nervous as you are, honestly. And so give them something. Tell me a little about yourself. Say 3 things, 3 hearty, salient points about yourself.
I like that. I think too, like just my experience interviewing, I will say, I always also ask, what do you know about our organization? And you'd be surprised how many people know nothing. I just want a job. And I think that is from a employee perspective, it's a turnoff, because it's like, you really don't want to work here. You just need a job and you're not really invested, right? So I would throw that in. Karli or Christianne, any thoughts on that?
I was actually about to say something similar, Jody. I was going to suggest that when you get to the part where the interviewer asks you if you have any questions for them, don't ask basic questions about the company that are readily available on the homepage. Like do your research and think of something insightful, something that's shown that you know what you're talking about, and that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, I love what Kevin said about like it being a conversation. I think one of my almost like pet peeves is like when we get to the part where the candidate asks a question and it's really just a script for them. Like they ask the question and I answer it, and there's no follow-up. Like I've said something pretty interesting, something where there's definitely room to expand and talk about it some more. Yeah, I think like that was really great advice to like treat it as a conversation and be curious, learn more about your interviewer and what they have to say.
I agree. I would also add to come with some, and maybe this goes to Kevin's three points about yourself, but if you're coming in for like an advertising position or a social media position, I want to know like what social media accounts are you following? What brands excite you? A little bit of those types of things, because if you're in that position or applying for a specific position, I think you should have some interest and some research done in that area. It always amazes me. I've had people apply for social media positions and they don't have social media. And I'm like, oh, it's a little confusing to me. So, in any case, let's move on. We hear that networking is important. We've talked a little bit about it through, loose connections that Karli had said, and, meeting people in church and things along those lines. Why is networking important? Christianne, I want you to tackle that one first.
Yeah, I think we've touched on it quite a bit with, talking about Hawaii as a small market where we know each other and we know each other's parents and all these things. But I'll just tell a short story, which is that in my internship at MVNP, I made an impression on one of the copywriters that I was working with without meaning to. And it wasn't the copywriter that I was reporting to. It was the copywriter who was my desk neighbor. And we weren't even really assigned to any projects together. But because of the proximity and because I asked her questions anyway, she observed me and my ideas and the way I was working and all these different things. And she remembered me, not just during the time of the internship, but going forward. And flash forward 2 years, and she had moved to San Francisco and was working with Google as a client. And she called me up to invite me to apply for a job on her team once I'd had enough experience. And that's why I believe in putting your best self forward at all times, because you never know who's watching.
Karli, you want to add to that?
Yeah, that's a great story. I mean, it's so true. Yeah, I guess expanding on the loose connections thing, like it's probably not going to be like your closest friends and family that get you those opportunities. Like it is going to be like random people that you interact with and you're not thinking like I have to make a strong impression. And that's why like you want to always be making that putting your best foot forward.
I think that's a great story, Christianne. The other ABC in sales is always be closing, right? And that's a little smarmy, but the idea is that you're always interviewing. When you're at work, right? And you don't know who the person sitting next to you. They're on a, skyrocketing trajectory in their course, and maybe they need people that they trust. And so that's awesome. I'm currently mentoring a college student who happens to go to school at my alma mater, University of San Francisco. And I did not meet her in person until this past weekend when I went back to go visit the school. But the reason why I mentored her is because, number one, the USF set us up to do that. But two, she asked really amazing questions about my life journey. And what that got me to think about, and she had a very clear personal brand. She wants to be a sustainability marketer, very specific. And it got me thinking, wow, that's a really cool job. Who do I know that might be cool like them? And can I hook them up to see if there's something here? And in fact, I did. So it was the coolest experience for me as the person making that connection. And I hope it's going to be a fruitful connection for her as well.
I really like that. I'm mentoring someone through a first generation individual, and she's actually in Spain right now. And she's into beauty. I mean, that's her. She's very specific. She's a makeup artist. She's a marketer. She wants to, work for a large beauty brand. And just indirectly, I have a connection that works for e.l.f. Eyes, Lips, Face. And so I connected the two of them. And I never thought, I would be able to do something in the beauty, arena, but it just so happened I have a friend that works at e.l.f. And so now they're connecting together. And she's interning this summer with Estee Lauder. So it's kind of neat that she's able to, as someone who's older, it feels really good to make those connections. I'm always excited and happy when I can connect people together and to see their journey, right? As a mentor. So I think that's awesome, Kevin.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask for help because your elders. I feel so old now, Jody. We want to do this stuff, and we really enjoy when people ask us. So.
Yeah, definitely. All right, Karli, how should you gain experience?
Fortunately there are a lot of ways to gain experience. I think I'm probably going to touch on a lot of things we've already covered, but I've stressed how internships are very valuable for gaining lots of different types of experience. Also, we've talked about like taking your class projects seriously. You have to do them anyway, so you might as well do like a pretty good job on them, and then you can talk about those experiences. And then I think we probably have also touched on doing personal projects that can touch more on your passions, your interests, and your brand. So yeah, lots of different ways to gain experience. And I would also add that for these different types of experiences, like be reflective about them. So we've talked about being able to articulate, why you did what you did for those projects or whatever it was. And also try to be intentional about the types of experience you're gaining and how it aims towards your interests. So I think Christianne talked about like how is what you're doing now leading towards the goals that you have. So for example, like right now I work at Servco and the brands are super established, like Toyota, Lexus. If that's sort of more what you're leaning towards, then, maybe try to get experience or like show that you've, can maybe work with more established brands. And what does that look like versus working in an agency or like something that's a little bit more, maybe with more creative space.
Kevin, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting experience means yes, quite honestly, more often than you say no. And what does it mean to say get an experience? Well, you can get experience in customer service by working at 7-Eleven, by working at Zippy's, Macy's, whatever it is. It doesn't need to be a big job, and that's how you get started. Because I'll be honest with you, I all things being equal with a candidate, I will always choose the person that worked in fast food. Why? Because it shows that they work hard, they have no ego, and they've done a really hard job and survived, right? And so it doesn't mean that you need to have experience just doing advertising, just doing marketing to be in this field. You just need experience, period.
Yep. You can hire me. I worked at McDonald's and I thought it was going to be the death of me. I mean, like the customers, I love McDonald's, but the customer experience, it was tough. And I agree. You have to deal with all different types of people from all walks of life. You have to manage your coworkers. You have to manage expectations. I mean, it was it was an incredible learning experience. And I think it's one of the jobs that I always talk about just because what I learned through my experience there. So I would agree with you definitely. Okay, I see some comments and some questions. So Sheena asked, I think this was back to, we talked about what questions for the interviewer and interviewee. She said she likes asking, what are your goals for working at a company? So that's a question that she asks when she's interviewing. Christine is asking, once you hire someone, what are some things they can do to stand out besides just working hard, or what you've done to stand out in the workplace? Anybody want to tackle that one?
I'll take that one. Number one, if the rule of thumb is when you're first starting out at entry level is if your boss asks you to work on something, say yes, even if it's not in your job description. Not that they're testing you or anything, but oftentimes they don't know, as a boss myself, they don't know where to put that job. And if you become the go-to, you're the person that I'm more likely to promote or at least talk up to other people.
Do you think so, Kevin, from your perspective, and Karli and Christianne, please feel free to chime in an organization, is it good to be that person that participates in like the wellness committee, or is it good to be that person who helps to coordinate the company party or the volunteer activities, that gets involved in things outside of their job description?
Absolutely. And that's what I mean. Like if I don't know who should be planning the next department outing, there's not a job description for that, but I think I need somebody else besides me to plan that, because anyway, it's for other people, it's not for me. And I probably plan something nobody want to go to. Hey, Karli, do you mind planning the next department outing? And I'll bet you she'll do a better job than me. People have way more fun at it. And she gained credibility with me because it's something that, she becomes a go-to person.
Christianne, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I had an example of this recently. I'm on the MVNP social team because I was asked in the first couple months, I think, after I started working there, and I said yes. And actually, there's someone on the call who is also on the MVNP social team, and she also said yes. So just saying yes to things and showing that you care and that you want to be involved, definitely, I think, not only gets you in front of more people, but expands your skill set as well.
Karli, are you involved in anything outside of your JD?
Yeah, there are a ton of ways to be involved at Servco. And so I definitely try to do that. And Servco is so big too that like one really great thing to do, especially at larger places, is like I work with the like certain team members, but there are so many more people to get to know, and like getting to know all those other people also expands like yeah, our opportunity and like our reach, my reach, like for what I do. So yeah, we've talked about this, but like networking even within your own company sometimes.
So Jerry Blue asked, I got my advertising job because they remembered me from my summer internship. What if a college student didn't have a chance to intern? How else can they stand out?
I can speak to this one a little bit. It's very biased from my copywriting perspective, but in my very first full-time job, I cold applied. I hadn't met this person at all. And what got me noticed, she told me, was that I had a great cover letter because the position was for a creative marketing writer to help develop this small startup's brand and voice. And so I wrote a cover letter that was funny and, and so it stood out from everyone else's because it showed in the cover letter that I could do that. And this was, me coming straight out of college. I just had my internships and didn't have any other full-time things. So that was the thing that made me stand out in that situation.
Cool, thank you. Okay. So, what is something you wish someone told you when you were just about to graduate and begin your career journey? So, let's start with you, Karli.
Yeah, probably to keep an open mind, because my career path or a career path is not predictable and it's most likely going to be somewhat difficult. So you can't really compare it to anyone else's or like even to your own expected, idea. I didn't expect to even be in Hawaii post grad, and then all my opportunities are in Hawaii, and I can't imagine it any other way now. So yeah, to keep an open mind and like try not to like set yourself on one direct path.
I like that. Christianne?
If someone had told me something when I was about to begin my career journey, I think that I wish it would have been to feel confident in sharing my perspective and not second guess myself because of my age or because of having the least amount of experience in the room. Because especially in advertising, diverse perspectives lead to diverse insights, which lead to quality work. And that diversity means backgrounds, ways of thinking, different generations. So I would just, if you've gotten a seat at the table, you deserve to be at that table.
I really like that. Kevin?
Somewhat similar to both Karli and Christianne. When I graduated from college, it was, I got to go work for the biggest company. I got to go work for what would be the Googles of now. I have to have the biggest, fanciest title. I need to have the coolest, most awesome place to work at. I have worked for large, publicly traded companies all my career until now. Zippy's is the first kind of mid-market, mid-sized, privately held company. And I will tell you, this is the best job I've ever had. Period. Hands down. Why? Because at a smaller company, the things that I do have a much greater disproportionate impact than they would at a much larger company where like literally at some places there are 12 steps to approving an ad. And of course, as Christianne will tell you, if there's 12 steps to approving an ad, everybody says something about the copy and then it falls apart, right? And so I really wish somebody told me, listen, don't focus on the big brand name companies. Don't focus on the brand name jobs. Focus on where you think you can make impact. And sometimes that's at the smaller companies that nobody knows with a job title that's really weird, but it's okay. Because if you find happiness, that's all that really matters in that job.
All great advice from all three of you folks. Thank you. So, we had some questions that came in earlier. If you have any additional questions, please drop it in the chat. But one of the questions that came in was, so many jobs look for 1 to 3 years of experience before applying. What advice do you have for recent graduates who run into this problem? Kevin, you want to tackle that one? I'm just going to keep throwing it to you.
I was going to ask the recent graduates on this call what they thought, actually. But I would say, this is one of those things that when it goes into a job description, what you're really asking for as somebody who writes job descriptions, what you're really asking for is, have you ever had a job before? Any job? Like, I don't want to be your first job and have to tell you when it says be at work at 8 a.m., it means come to work at 8 a.m. I'm not that level of, job. So if you go get a job in retail, show and demonstrate that someone else actually paid you before you came to work for me. And that's really all we're asking for. It doesn't mean that you need to be an expert. I mean, come on, you have 1 to 3 years of experience. You're not an expert in anything. What we just need to know is that you're a good human being.
Karli?
Yeah, I'll just add that for job descriptions, I feel like, especially entry level, it's really rare that you're going to hit all of the points. So just apply anyway, because you're not going to hit all of their checkboxes on the job description. You just need to get in there, and then show them what you got from there.
Christianne, do you want to add anything to that?
I think they covered it great.
Yeah, I would agree. How about people who are like graduates or entry level applying for jobs and having to navigate salary negotiations? I've had experience where, I get people fresh out of college and they're wanting to make, like 6 figures and up, and it's like, you don't really have the experience yet. So I guess it's both sides. How do they navigate salary negotiations, and what advice do you have for them when they're needing to be a little bit more realistic?
I'll take that one. We're lucky, if you're looking for a job in Hawaii, at least, we're lucky that we now have some laws on the books that talk about salary transparency. So all jobs now must come with a relative range within what's reasonably expected to get for that job. So already you can kind of do your sort, and then you'll realize that your first job out of college will not pay $100,000. And then you can kind of level set there. In terms of the actual salary negotiations, I mean, there's entire courses you can take on that. Suffice it to say that know what the range is, and now we know what it is. And if you're aiming for the top end of that range, you better demonstrate why you deserve that top end of the range, and you better nail that interview, that conversation, if you will, up, down, left, and right.
Yeah, I agree. Karli, I see you smiling. Is there anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I can just speak on personal experience that kind of going into what my advice would be to myself, before looking at jobs is comparing yourself to other people. So yes, in Silicon Valley, if we're talking about the Google's jobs, yes, maybe, the salaries are a bit higher, but I'm pretty aware that to stay in Hawaii and to have this job that I have now, I was going to take a pay cut from a job I might have taken if I was in California or someplace else. So kind of being cognizant about, comparing yourself and comparing the jobs to, jobs on the mainland, maybe. Yeah.
I'll throw a small, tiny wrench into it by just saying, I just, again, speaking like Karli to my younger self, I would resist the urge to take the first number offered to you, uh, especially as a woman. Studies have shown women don't tend to negotiate as much as men do. And so even if it seems scary, I would recommend at least negotiating the first number.
Yeah, I think that's something that you deal with your entire life and your entire career as a female, you know. So I see Larry has a question. What do you all think about creative services work in Hawaii long term? So it's a little bit of a different type of question. And we have one brand and two creatives, right, on the call. Anybody want to tackle that?
So from a brand perspective, Larry, I would say that your position as doing creative work, there will always be a need for local creative to be done. You can't write for this market. You can't shoot for this market from LA. It's just so weird, right? We are unique in how we speak to each other, our relationships with each other, and our brands are super unique. I just got off of 4 days of spending time with a new vendor that we brought in from Dallas, and all they knew from us was their what they learned about us online and talking to some of their industry contacts. They had no conception of what Zippies really means culturally to Hawaii until they got here. And everyone from the flight attendants to the Uber driver to their bellhop was saying, "Oh my God, you guys can work for Zippies." And they did not have any understanding of that. So therefore, there will always be a job for you here, Larry. I will admit, the question is how many of those and how does it pay? And that I don't know.
Interesting point. Christianne or Karli?
I can speak to it a little bit as well. I have two thoughts about creative services work in Hawaii long term. One is my ongoing fascination with the rise of AI, which is kind of more of a global creative services work thing. I just want to say that I think that there will always be a need for people. I don't think AI will ever replace artists or writers truly. I think it might make jobs a little bit easier if it's used as a tool, but not as a replacement for people. I'll leave it there because I've been thinking about that a lot. But that my second thought is that, like Kevin said, you can't do this work, from LA, from somewhere else, not just because of the way that we talk to each other, as people, but also because I've worked remotely for a couple places in California and in person. And I think that the way we talk to each other internally and, agency to client, the way that we work with each other in business is also different. And I think that it is special and it's better. And I don't think that will ever really go away.
Yeah, I agree. I think Hawaii is such a beautiful, beautiful place and a unique place. And people find out about it when they come here. Some people never leave. And some people who come here as transplants never leave too, right? So I think it's definitely magical. We're actually coming to the end, which is crazy. One question that someone else had sent in earlier is, what is the best way to find a mentor? So I know we all have different experiences. Karli, any thoughts on that?
The best way to find a mentor. So in my experience, like the whole being set up by a program thing has hardly worked for me. So really it's been kind of more like naturally finding people who, when in conversations, you realize you have similar passions or interests. They might not necessarily need to align exactly with your job title or career, and they could still be a great mentor to you. So yeah, from experience personally, it's happened through just connecting with people on that level of like what we're passionate and interested about.
Christianne, you want to add to that?
I'll say briefly, just similar. I don't think I've ever had a mentor matchup, but most of my mentors have happened naturally through my supervisors, actually, my copywriting supervisors. And my main mentor was that copywriter I talked about, the one who
Oh,
remembered me at MVP. I really owe so much to her, but that happened just naturally as well.
nice. Kevin, you talked more about you've been a mentor, but have you been a mentee?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, my mentors came from when I already had a job, and what
Mhm.
what I ask people to do is take a look around. Who are the people within that company who are perceived as being successful? Um, why do people like them? And then ask them, just outright ask them, listen, I'm looking for somebody to help my career. And I know that you are somebody that people really look to up around in this company. If you don't mind, can we go and have lunch, sit down on Tuesday at 3 o'clock for coffee, whatever it is, that is. So I have been very successful because of the mentorships I've had at Bank of Hawaii, at nonprofit organizations actually that I volunteered for. That was a really good way to find a mentor. They're generally filled with really good people and nonprofits. So
Yeah, I will just add too, like mentors don't have to be someone older or more seasoned. Sometimes it's a colleague, you know? I bounce ideas off of Kevin all the time. I text him, I'm like, I need your advice.
and I tell her no a lot.
Or can I pick your brain? Or, so I think it can come from colleagues as well. We have time for one last question, and it's going to be Jerry Blues. It's a very interesting one. What is the one pet peeve you have for new candidate interviews? Dun dun. Anything?
Mine is simple. So when I ask them, so what kind of questions might you have for me? None.
Yeah, that's irritating. Karli or Christianne, any?
I think I mentioned mine earlier, but it's when someone kind of has a script for asking questions and they don't really expand or ask any follow-up questions, especially when I've given like kind of something for them to follow up on.
Yeah, I kind of touched on mine earlier as well with the, do your research and just show that you have thought about this.
Perfect. Okay. Well, that is it. Thank you all. Mahalo, panel, for your insight and time. I learned a lot and I appreciate your time and energy and insight. It was awesome talking stories with all of you. And mahalo to the audience for joining us this evening. I hope that you learned as much as I did. And please enjoy the rest of your evening. This is recorded, so if you want to go back and listen to some tidbits or tips, it'll be on our AAF Hawaii webpage and our YouTube channel. With that said, enjoy your evening. Have a good one. Aloha.